attention. Anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking.
Back at it again with another episode of the Shades of Blue Soccer Show. My name is Cody Bradley. Thad Bell, Robert Russert, David Greenwald are all here via StreamYard. We're testing out our new video stuff today, so video stuff is coming. This episode is brought to you by Garber Bucks. Are you constantly running into that pesky salary cap? Garber Bucks are your reliable funding source, even if we have to change the rules mid-season. TAM, JAM, none of it matters. Garber Bucks, your designated investment opportunity.
Is it jam or is it gam?
Gam.
That's fair.
Are we finding on the advert? Are we going to lose sponsors?
Let's get that straightened out while we're here.
That's fair, because I hold strong to what GIF is, and that's why I held strong there. But I do think that it's TAM and jam. I've always said jam. You're calling me out for messing up an ad read. I normally do the ad reads very well. Apologies to Garber Bucks, our sponsor today.
Sorry, I'm also trying to distract from just another brutal performance from the club.
Yeah, we're not excited about talking about it, but there is actual, there's reason to talk about the game itself last night, I think. But we are going to get into, the show is Vermes Out Curious. We're officially Vermes Out Curious, I think. David is a little beyond that. Robert is on the fence here. So we're going to get into all of that. But I do want to talk about the game. Red card, we're now even. There was a 7-minute span where we had scored more goals than we had red cards. We were not allowed to carry that on for very long. The soccer gods are picking on us, is what it feels like a little bit. David, tell us what you thought of the first half. How about that, of Sporting KC?
What's worse than bad? I do have a pretty decent vocabulary, but I'm not a thesaurus. I'm trying to find the exact word for
we may need to make one up.
100 times worse than bad.
Yes.
It was bad. It's the same performance we've seen all season long, which is disjointed in the midfield, disjointed at the back, slow on the attacks, slow on the offense, taking just terrible chances. Remy blasting balls from way outside the box. Thommy, Pulido slowing attacks down. It was just bad.
It was bad everywhere. The goal, oddly, when the goal happened, there was something telling me, 2-0, the most dangerous lead in sports. Oddly, in the darkest days of our hour, I felt like we might get something out of that. And it was oddly just such a beautiful goal. So simple, so well taken. Jog back and let's do it again. It looked like we'd been scoring like that all year long. And it was on a set piece. Robert, we scored on a set piece.
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. But yeah, you're right. It looks so simple. Come on, guys. Why is this difficult?
Well, and it's because the set piece is the great equalizer. And there's nothing in the attack. And I know I've been seemingly the only one of us that wants to pick on the guy, and I don't ever like doing that. But when your attacking midfielder can't do anything, seemingly, then that's going to impact every ounce of the attack that you have. That's where everything should come from. Where other teams have their best player on the team, someone pushing the league forward, we have a guy that is just actively hurting us at every corner. Thad.
Say his name. Say his name.
Oh, I did not even say yet. Erik Thommy. It sucks, man. I don't know how he did so well to finish out last season in his... He was just thrown into the ring of fire very quickly and did so well. And even started this season doing so well. But, man, Gadi Kinda cannot come back soon enough.
I thought he was slightly better yesterday than he had been, although some passes were very not connecting with others. Yeah. But you want to know what the turning point was? The PK. When his PK was stopped and Thommy stepped up to take it and his was stopped.
That's a good point.
He has been on a downhill ever since. And actually, I'm not going to take credit for that. That was pointed out to me by somebody else, but I don't think I should probably mention their name.
But since then, it's the yips. We're at the point it's the yips. Whatever the soccer version of that is. He's snake bitten and
the Halcyons.
Wow. Halsey. Wow. Throwback.
Put a pin in Connor Halsey, because when we get to a later segment in the show about why I want Vermes to go, Connor Halsey is going to play a beautiful role in that.
Okay. And David, you were asking earlier for a term that's worse than bad. One that I like is lugubrious.
Ooh, very good word.
Mournful, dismal, dramatic, and lugubrious. Bad.
So I think you're reading off of a screen, so I'm not going to ask you to spell it, but I was going to offer you money if you could spell it without the aid of a computer or phone.
You're accusing Thad of whipping out a nice vocabulary because he's just reading them off a screen here.
There,
If
I just
you
typed
watched
it in.
his eyes. We're on video. I watched his eyes move.
I just
back
typed
and
it in
forth.
for you.
And it sounds like a word you should spit after you say it, because that just kind of fits.
Just to hammer it home a little bit.
Yeah.
I
So
think we found the title for the pod, though.
lugubrious. We might have done that one actually already. Thad likes this
I
word.
think we did. Because I called the defense lugubrious last year at one point.
Okay, so
Sad, slow, dismal.
there were adjustments. I don't know if anyone actually stayed to watch the end of that game. I am a glutton for punishment, so I did. And there were 2 goals there. They had an opportunity to level the match and even score a winner. And I don't understand how it's possible. A lot of, Vermes kind of conceded when you take out Pulido, at least seemingly, but somewhere there were some tactics there that kept Sporting Kansas City in the game, Thad.
Yeah, it was called the other team sitting back. I do agree that there was some added incentive, because you see that before when teams go down a man, they actually play better for a while. And I think they were playing better for a while, but it was part of it is that the other team had the lead and they didn't try as hard. Sorry, you guys all froze on me, so I don't know if that was me. So
Yeah,
Thad's internet is lugubrious.
Is very lugubrious today.
Should we talk about Fonte?
We should talk about Fonte.
All right. We lost Thad. I would love to hear Thad's thoughts. But Robert, I want to talk about Fontes' yellow to start. Did you think that was a yellow card?
You know what? I did not focus too much on the first yellow. I was very focused on the second situation, the Rosero foul. So I'm not really going to be much of a help on that one.
Cody, what about you? Did you think that Fontes' first card deserved one?
No, I did not at all.
It's absolutely a foul.
It is.
But it seemed awfully soft to be like a yellow. He wasn't in an attacking position. He wasn't, doing anything particularly dangerous. Fontes didn't have it wasn't persistent infringement.
It was the scenario for sure. It was the fact that he had all the space in front of him. There might not have been another guy back. And I mean, yeah, it was at midfield, but he had all day to run, and I think that's where the referee got that one.
Well, but so then, he gets booked. Robert, what are your thoughts on that? Second yellow, rescinded yellow, straight red. Dog so?
Well, I mean, again, you've got to look at the Rosero situation. We didn't get a great picture of it, but what you can see is, and Rosero was pulling on his jersey to exhibit to the referee what had happened. You can't clearly see that from the video, but if that's a foul, then nothing else matters. But as far as the foul on Fontes that they called, yeah, I mean, I think he slightly got the ball, but then he takes out the player, and we talked about that last week. That's still a foul, whether you're in the box or outside the box. I would say a second yellow more than a straight red. It's possible Rosero could have recovered to, conflict with the attacker at the time, but it doesn't really matter because the Rosero foul, I believe, should have been called.
it should have been called.
Yeah, I don't even know why I don't even think we should be harping on about that one. It did feel just the circumstances. It feels like the soccer gods are picking on us.
Well, but so I do want to go in on that though, because okay, maybe Rosero was fouled, maybe he wasn't, but it's such bad soccer IQ and such bad defending. The ball, the most dangerous part of the field is at through the middle, right? Through the middle of the box. The ball for New England at this point is out closer to the wing than to the middle of the box. There's nobody else joining the striker and the attack, right? So he's 1v1 and there's nobody else there, no other defenders, no other attackers. So even if you don't make a challenge on the ball, you can shade him down the line. You can shade him to like a less dangerous position. You just don't let him cut towards the middle. It allows Rosero to recover and get back into the play. You can get numbers back behind the ball. There's just no need to make a challenge there necessarily.
Felipe Hernandez, is he an upgrade over Roger Espinoza?
Offensively, yes. No doubt.
They're largely the same player. Like the underlying metrics for both of them are pretty similar. The difference being that Felipe could run for 90 minutes and Roger needs an oxygen tank on the sideline.
Now, I'm not so sure about that last part, David, to be honest with you. There was a situation where Hernandez could have gotten back defensively during middle of the second half. And basically, he thinks about running. He increases his pace at one point, but then he just looks like he can't even make the run and just lets the runner go through. So, I mean, there's a situation there where, yeah, he's not hustling back and he's not showing his fitness there. I don't know if that's a lack of attitude or he's just giving up or what it is, but certainly not a good situation there for him.
Cody, you've been notoriously not pro Felipe. Where do you but you've waffled a little bit. You've come slightly back on you've been Felipe curious. Where are you today?
I don't know that I really did ever come back around. Once I decided that he wasn't going to become what we wanted him to become, I don't think I've ever wavered on that one. And this last game just made me feel like I'm almost over every single one on the roster. Maybe short of Pulido. And maybe even Danny Rosero. I don't know what the hell that one play was where he passed it back to the keeper. That was inexcusable. It was horrible. But I'll give him one mistake. Even he had to succumb to what Sporting Kansas City is right now. Just a little bit.
He's had a few of those little things, but yeah.
So, yeah, I'm at the point where I don't know what his contract situation is. I guess because he was homegrown and he might be under our control, so it might be worth it to keep him. But could he have the career that Roger Espinoza has had in MLS and flirt with European football? I don't think so. And we were talking to Whittingham about the lack of homegrowns and the lack of firepower in the youth system. And so, yeah, I'm here for a whole restart. I have no diehard affiliation to any of these guys anymore.
So, Cody, for some context, Capology has Felipe at $85,000 a year.
Capology, that's a new one for me.
Useful site, pretty cool. But they've got Felipe making $85,444 a year. And for that money, like I'm fine with it, right? He's a squad player.
Yeah.
He's not going to go to Europe. You're right. Like he's not going to go play in the Premier League. But for $85,000, he's a capable squad player. I think part of the issue though is, we're expecting him. We're talking about his ability to replace Roger. He's replacing Roger now, not replacing the Roger that, was in the club's DNA when we had the identity change. And that's a Roger from a different era of MLS, depending on who you ask. We're in 3.0, 4.0, whatever you want to call it. Roger was like a 2.0 player. Guys like him they're not in the league anymore either.
Felipe is capable, but I think a lot of MLS teams are going to have a second midfielder in that spot that is going to be a bit better than what I think his ceiling is. Robert, where are you at with Felipe?
Well, I think the system is broken. We've talked about that a little bit, but the 4-3-3 has to have certain components working for the system to work. And right now, we don't have a strong enough wing defensive play, So they shut down tacks early with high pressure. There were many examples in this game of them getting right past our first initial pressure after we lost the ball. And then that exposes our midfield because our midfield is not organizing themselves effectively either, which then leaves our center backs exposed. So it's this cycle that the system is just showing our players to be weak in those situations. But the question is it the players that are not able to execute the system, or is the system not a fit for them? I think those become questions. They're supposed to be, because that's the way it's supposed to be designed, but it's not working.
But here's the thing, I was rewatching the broadcast this morning, and first of all, it's great to hear Cal on the broadcast again. No offense to Nate Bukaty, but Cal, it's just something different. I remember so many great memories of hearing him call our games. But the color commentator made a comment about how Bruce Arena this year alone has shifted tactics so much with the Revs, how they've set up to bunker and counter, they've set up to possess and really attack, and that it rotates based on which players are available and who the opponent is. And to me, it's not even the 4-3-3 so much as we are not shifting tactics. So often over the last decade, we've heard Peter say, like, well, we just needed to kind of double down on what we already had. And we'll see him make some tactical shifts every so often. But by and large, like, we go into every game with the exact same game plan, regardless of who we're playing. And I think that ultimately is a mistake.
This episode is brought to you by Google Pixel, the official fan phone of the NBA and WNBA. The new Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are built different. How? Take the Audio Magic Eraser tool. It helps block out distracting crowd noise so your play-by-play commentary sounds crystal clear. The only phone engineered by Google brings out the audio you care about so your videos sound as crisp as they look. Learn more at googlestore.com/pixelnba. Audio Magic Eraser requires Google Photos app. May not work on all audio elements.
This episode is presented to you by NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. With NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV, you can watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday games, plus watch up to 4 games at once with Multiview. Don't miss the race to the playoffs. NFL Sunday Ticket is now just $39 when bundled with YouTube TV, where you get even more football. Visit youtube.com/Spotify offer to sign up now. Lowest price on YouTube TV with base plan. Rest of 2023 season. Terms and embargoes apply. No cancellations.
Well, that brings us to the Peter Vermes discussion. I don't know who I'm mad at, but I feel like we're at the point where it's just, I want him to fire somebody. I'm mad, fire someone, show some accountability. Tell us there's a players-only meeting. Tell us Johnny Russell called a players-only meeting. We need something. Do all of the things to appease us. Fire someone. I want someone's head. David.
Well, it's getting to the point. I was thinking about this last night. I was going to post it on Slack, but I changed my mind. It's like, I think it needs to go beyond saying something, saying that there was a meeting between the players. And what does that do?
Nothing, but do it. Tell us they've done it.
Something's got to be done. I mean, owners can come and say, oh, well, we're monitoring the situation and we're worried about it too, blah, blah, blah. Get the vote of confidence, whatever. But that doesn't change anything. Something needs to change. And the only way they can change is by changing staff, leadership staff.
David, are you fire Vermes?
Yes.
Hold on. Actually, before we do this, we need the cause needs to get on the same page here. They need a hashtag. What's the rallying cry? I see Vermes out. I see fire Vermes. I see sack Vermes. What's the hashtag? David, lead the charge here. What are we using for this?
Vermes out.
Vermes out. See, that feels like that's too European. Is fire? I feel like fire Vermes is the one that we need to go with.
But it's not just Vermes. It's Bliss. It's most of the technical staff. It's, we talked about this after our pod last week with Whitty, but, I'm sure the medical staff is very good. I'm sure the physios, the training staff, the trainers, they're all great. I'm sure they're all excellent at their jobs, but at a certain point, we've had so many consistent problems where, our DP, Felipe Gutierrez, cartilage injury in his knee, DP Alan Pulido, cartilage injury in his knee, DP Gadi Kinda, cartilage injury in his knee. And so we're either not evaluating these players on the front end to say, like, hey, perhaps there's a problem, maybe we shouldn't go through with this signing, which happens, right? There are guys who don't pass their physicals when they come in for a transfer, or there's something about the pitch, or there's something about our training philosophy there's something wrong. And Thad's mentioned before that, those injuries are hard to diagnose, but there's something wrong. And so at this point, clear everything out and get just a new set of eyes on everybody.
There is the continued injuries of players on the team does make it seem like there has to be something there. It might be a false equivalency. We might just feel hurt by more injuries because it's our team. So I don't know about all of that, but I do know that one recruiting tactic or angle that they go for is finding players that are in a tough situation with a club and that they can get them out of it easily. And that's often because of an injury, or a player has had an injury history and so I think that was part of the reason with Pulido. Vermes even mentioned Agata may have had a lingering thing when they signed him. So I do think that might be part of it. But Thad, is it crazy to suggest that there's something that this team is doing? Even I know we have this amazing training center and they put all this money. I know that there's good professionals that are working for this team. They monitor their meals. They do all of this stuff. There's so much money going into it. Is it crazy to think that there's something this team is doing that is adding to these injuries?
Looking at it, you would have to think there is, but at the same time, every time that they've had a bad year, in fact, I mean, they do it every year, but especially when they have a bad year, is they go through and reevaluate everything, and sometimes they do change people. I don't know what training thing or what you could be doing that would cause the same injury that's undetectable in 4 different players over 8 years. But I don't know what that could be. And I don't know if anybody else knows what that could be. So I always hesitate to point towards those particular injuries. You could point more towards some of the muscle injuries or something like that. That could be more of a training thing or not being monitored correctly. I would be much more willing to think that was an issue. But you would have to think there was something, but I just don't know what it would be. And they've had people look at it, and I know some of the people over there, and I have faith that they're good.
It's almost more about needing like just a reset of the club culture, right? And this is partially Vermes' fault, and it's a good problem, which is that he set the bar to a certain expectation. Mm-hmm. And I think we've hit the ceiling of what we can do with the current front office and technical staff. And so clear it all out, use the club's DNA, the inherent idea of we want to possess, we want to attack, we want to play beautiful soccer, but it's time to grow. It's time to move forward. It's time to get the next thing. And I think the club needs a bit of a reset.
Robert, fire Vermes?
Vermes has set the culture, like you said. He's got his standard values that are good. I think part of the issue is that he uses those values as a guideline to evaluate players and who he should recruit, who he should keep on the roster. You got Zuzi and Espinosa there for a long time for good reason because they uphold those values. But it's not a set in stone guide to constructing your roster. And I think maybe it's been used too much that way. And, I would hate to see Peter go, but, where do you make change and where does change most happen? It happens right there on the day-to-day. Bliss out? Yeah, I agree. Then we need new ideas there too. But Bliss doesn't affect the day-to-day, the constant interaction with the players and those type of things.
Thad.
What? What's the actual question?
Come on, man. Come on, man. Why can you never just support me and do a good radio show with me? Thad, fire Vermes or not?
Not yet.
Yeah, which
if they
brings
lose
us
on Tuesday.
Exactly. That brings us to Tuesday.
What a bar for.
Well, I guess Thad, what's the breaking point for you? If they miss the playoffs again, is that the breaking point?
Tuesday for me.
Well,
can you
Tuesday
guys
would be
imagine
one breaking point?
Can you imagine if we lose to a non-league team?
Yeah, I
That
mean, I
would-
can't imagine it. I don't think it'll happen, but I mean, I can
Think about
picture a world in which it happens.
You know, in a world where everything goes wrong, when nothing goes right, when knees just magically disappear and fail, when nobody can do anything right, when the soccer gods are against you in every call, yes, you could lose to
Well,
a
that-
non-professional team from frickin' Tulsa.
Well, that seems to be the world we're living in right now.
I know, that's why I went that way.
So,
like,
yes.
But
Okay,
Thad,
so-
what is your breaking point? I mean, sure, if we lose to a semi-professional team, like obviously, but if the team misses the playoffs again,
Yes.
is that so?
there's-
You're willing to give Peter the whole season?
Oh, wait. No, that is a breaking point. That's
Okay.
one. Okay.
I'm trying to-
there's
I'm
more
trying
than
to-
one. There
okay.
doesn't have to be just one spot, right?
Sure, I'm just trying to
So, yes.
clarify.
If they're going to miss the playoffs, that's the minimum bar for any team in American sports is making playoffs. That's the minimum bar, which is not that hard if you have a even halfway decent team. Another bar for me is if he loses the team, right?
yes.
When I say if he loses the locker room, and it will become obvious, like people will say, "Oh, there's guys are out there not trying hard or playing hard or whatever." I think that's BS. I think there's guys out there playing hard. They may be lack of confidence, they may be down, etc. But I think a lot of them are still playing hard, or most if not all of them are still playing hard. They want to win. They don't go out there and say, "Yeah, I don't care anymore."
and
In fact, sometimes caring too much is the problem. But if he loses the locker room, if he loses the team, if they just don't care anymore, that's an immediate. You have to change right at that moment, because any voice at that point is better.
exactly.
Us taking over the coaching staff would be better at that point and we would obviously not be qualified. So
Exactly. Losing the locker room is the answer of any question for a coach in any sport, of a fire a coach question. It doesn't matter how good the coach is, what the league or what the team is paying him. If the players are not, if he doesn't have the players, then he's got to go. And that's kind of where my barometer has been this season. Like, if they're genuinely this bad all season long, then that will have meant he's lost the locker room at some point. If Gotti Kinda comes back and they genuinely can't do anything in the attack, then yeah, something will have gone wrong at some point.
Well, let me ask you this though. So last year, after Tommy Nagata come in, we make a big run, right? I think on the form table we were like the second best team in the league for the last like 10, 11 games of the season, something like that, right?
Yeah.
That's all just dissolved. That's all gone.
That
right?
might have put this club into a hole for the next 5 years. That run that they did at the end of last season might have really hurt this team.
So, and we all follow, the sport from and other leagues. We all are familiar with the concept of the new manager bounce. So, the team last year is substantively the same team that we have this year. Plus, we added Pulido, and theoretically, we're getting Kinda back. So we know that team can get results. That this roster should be able to get results, because the only piece we really lost is what? Izzy? Right?
right.
So is there not something to the idea of sacking Vermes now, firing Vermes now, to get the new manager bump? Because if your theory is that these players are good enough, they're clearly not responding to the tactics and the motivation from the manager.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, if a guy's going to come in, he needs the summer window to start shaping his roster, a new guy, and then the off season to do that, and then to go into next season with some momentum. The longer you wait, the less that can happen. Say you do it after a Leagues Cup and, near the end of the summer window, it's tougher for a coach to come in and start shaping his team for next season. So, yeah, but, it's always that damn excuse. Oh, what about these injured players come back? Then we've got a great team. How convinced are we of that still?
Well,
You still got to give him Gotti, right? Gotti still has to come back and get on the field. We got to see something.
Yeah, and I just did the math, folks. We need 10 wins minimum. That's a 10-6-9 record to get 42 points, which is enough in ninth place last year. Are you confident this team can go 10-6-9 right now?
No.
Or 11-8-6, 10, 12-10-3, or 13-12? Those are four scenarios this team has to go to make the playoffs.
And I like Gotti, but Gotti is not that guy. This isn't like getting back, like a true like DP, like difference making player. Gotti's a good player. Gotti will make us better, presumably. But this
Maybe.
isn't like getting back. I mean, maybe they get Hani Mukhtar back, all of a sudden they're really good. This isn't about, like some of these other like truly game-changing number 10s. Carlos Heel last night, like if Carlos Heel's out, it fundamentally changes who New England is. And when he comes back, they're much, much better. We are better with Gotti, hypothetically, but he's not that player. He's not a challenging to be MVP of the league.
And that's if he returns to his former self.
Pulido's not even anywhere near his former self at this point. So what are the odds Gotti comes back?
And that's what I've been saying for the last year is they may not ever come back to be their former selves.
Yeah.
There was moments of Pulido last night that he was looking like his former self.
Pulido's good, man.
Their connecting last night was not great, but I hate to use the game in New England as a bar because games in New England are always rough for Sporting. They playing on the turf, the different bounce, all that stuff. That's always rough. And going up against a Bruce Arena team, that's always going to be rough. So I don't want to use that as the bar for anything. If we're going to go for bars for like getting rid of Vermes, it should be the next home game. If they don't come out, they don't win that. That's a definite bar there. I don't know. I'm not saying I would be on that one, but that's one that I think people should shoot for.
Getting back to Pulido for a second, I didn't mention this while we were talking about the game, but the lack of creativity in the attack or the lack of anything in the attack, he was at times the only creative player, and we've always liked him. Vermes has liked him because his willingness to go get involved into the midfield, to drop back and get involved. And the problem is every single time, like because that's the only source of an attack that we have, he would drop back, make a pass, and then we don't have our striker in the attack. So it's every chance that we had, it was Roger Espinoza running onto a ball into the box or someone else that, isn't our $10 million striker. So yeah, again, it all comes back to Erik Thommy for me. And maybe because we were close in that game with Erik Thommy, maybe if Gadi Kinda isn't an MVP caliber player, they can still stick around. And at least I just want to enjoy. Give me some goals. Give me something to cheer about the rest of the season. The playoffs, yes, that conversation we just had, the playoffs seem like a far-fetched thought at this point. But give me a run. Give me something to cheer about. It's the last two games I have genuinely lost the fun. A couple podcasts ago, it was like, you know what? I like this team. I like soccer. I like finding positives. I enjoy watching this team. The last two games just haven't been fun. I hopped out of my chair for Johnny's goal. That was nice, but I need some fun the rest of the season.
And tactic-wise, we did see Russell slip into that midfield, play a little more centrally, which kind of helped with the Pulido, not being forward. So shall we play a little bit deeper too? So those are some adjustments that were made, but then the red card happened and it just all went to pot from that. So
yeah, Johnny in the second half, even after the red card, he was floating into the middle like he was our attacking midfielder at times because he might be the only creative person we have.
Which left Duke and his speed, on the wing to do some attacking, which, is a good adjustment.
Poor Cam Duke playing on the wrong side of the field. Several disconnected passes, bad passes.
He's not a good passer, that's for sure.
No, here's the thing. Peter Vermes has failed Cam Duke.
Well, okay, that's fair. But again, he's another one that, how good was he going to be?
Who knows? Because he never plays his own fucking position. He's an attacking mid. That kid was built to play the 8/10. And how often in the 200 minutes a year that he gets does he get to play in his right fucking position? How often does he get to actually start consistently to get minutes to develop? Never. He never does. Because Vermes wants to train him at 8 other positions, but never enough to actually play the position that he's best suited for, and never enough to get him a run of games where he can get consistent. He makes a mistake, he gets yanked. Roger makes a mistake, Roger keeps playing. It doesn't matter. It's not a meritocracy. It's not fair. It's tough to be motivated if you're a player like that. If you're Marino's Jean-Yves and you watch Shallowy go out for 8 games and just flounder and do nothing, what motivation is there to keep working hard in training? You're brought in, you're told you're going to be this U22, you're an attacking player. You never play your own fucking position either. We'll play you on the right, we'll play you in the middle, we'll play you everywhere except for the left wing, where it's just where you play. That's a failure on Vermes, the GM. It's a failure on him as the coach. It's not fair to these guys. Cam ought to be traded to a team that will actually treat him and develop him. And maybe he'll never be a star. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be a best 11 player to be like a good value out of the academy. Because if you're developing kids out of the academy that can be in your squad, it means you're not paying transfer fees. They hit your cap differently. We should be looking, if you have a guy who can just play squad minutes out of your academy, that's a win. But what we've got from Cam is below that, because we're not utilizing him. Because we gave him the contract and then said, okay, fuck your development, you're done. And that's a detriment to him. It's not fair to him.
Okay, I think we've hit our allotment of F-bombs. One more, and I think we get fined by some government.
You can edit all of those out in post, right?
I'm not going to. I could. I'm not going to.
That's too much damn work.
I was inspired by Cavincio.
That has Vermes failed these younger players? Or let me add in my piece quickly before you answer. I guess we don't see the extended training. That even if we all go to training, it's a 20-minute window that we get to watch where they're like scrimmaging and things like that. My thought on if they're not playing, it's because they haven't shown enough in practice is where I land. So Thad, where do you stand on this?
There's a lot of what both of you say is correct. Okay, I do think that they could have done some better development for damn sure, but when they are signed, they also have an opportunity to be better than the players that they want to be in that position. If they're not doing that, you could say, "Oh, that's the fault of whoever signed them." But at the same time, somebody is going to be the better player. Somebody's going to get the majority of time. If Cam Duke's not showing it in training that he's the better option at some spot, or good enough in training to make you think you're going to win MLS games with them, then you're going to look for other players to be in that spot. He's still a great utility player. Felipe is a great utility player. I think Jake Davis is a great utility player. All those guys. They may not be MLS starters. So if you're not, any player that comes in, if Johnny doesn't come in training, show that he's better than Shallowy, he's not playing in that spot. He's going to play in whatever spot is needed at that moment. Logan Ndembe, he wasn't healthy enough to be better than Ben Sweat for a lot of last year.
Thank you for changing that before.
But Thad, isn't like, let's say that Daniel trains so much better and so much harder than Jonis, right? Let's just say hypothetically that's true, because I'm not out there, so I don't know. But let's say hypothetically that's the case. At the end of the day, to steal from Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice, not a game. We're talking about practice. So you can practice as great as you want and as hard as you want. If you can't get the job done during the 90 minutes that you're paid to win, then at what point do you as the coach say, I don't care how hard Daniel trains, he's not scoring goals, he's not getting assists, he's not contributing. Maybe I should try this other guy who may not train as well, but hypothetically, maybe he might get a result. Because I don't know if you guys watched the end of the game or not, but like the 4-minute cameo Johnny Scott, which again, not super fair to him to come on with 4 minutes left to make a difference. He looked like he made a difference. He was he and Felipe almost scored a goal. They almost combined to score a goal. So at what point do you say, yeah, Roger trains the way I want because he's been here for 35 years, but he's not getting results, so let's let somebody else get a run of games?
To be fair, that was the first time I've seen Johnny's look productive. So maybe he did earn himself another couple minutes.
But what position has Johnny's played when he comes in? In the last 2 years, where does Johnny's play?
On the wing.
All over the place. Right, midfield.
Right, and what was he signed as? When he got signed from Cyprus,
He was signed as an attacker.
As a left winger. That's where he played in Cyprus. He played as a left wide mid, or he played as a left winger.
He played both wings in Cyprus, but he was more the left wing. I will agree with you. Just clarifying. He played both sides.
So let's
But
recap.
you're right, David. At some point, there needs to be a commitment. You got to commit to the players you've signed in some way or another, and that has not happened.
What does that mean, though? Does that mean playing them even if you don't think they're the ones that are going to get you results?
No, it means finding them a place where they can be most successful.
Which may not get you results.
But we're not getting results now.
That's
I know, but
yeah.
but in past years when you can say these guys should have been developing, because if Cam Duke was going to develop more, if Felipe was going to develop more, and you got to remember, Felipe self-harmed himself a half of his season.
Sure.
Right.
That was not the best way to say it, but he took himself out of contention for half of a season, which then took another half of a season to get back at least close to what he was. He was on track to actually be potentially a starter because he was getting lots of minutes and getting starts before that happened. But if you go back when Cam Duke wasn't getting as many minutes, or some of those other homegrown players, the team was playing well. They were being successful. So you can point to now, but point to when they should have gotten their real development time, and that was a lot more questionable. I'm not saying you're completely wrong in that. I'm just saying that's a lot more questionable time frame.
Yeah, but I mean, how often are they getting loaned down to the 2 team and actually getting run with the 2 team? Because that's also very mixed, right? If the
much
idea
more
is that,
lately.
If the idea is that the homegrowns aren't good enough to play for the first team, but they're good enough that they might one day, and you sign them to a homegrown contract, but you want them to develop, then instead of traveling to San Jose in the 18 and sitting on the bench the whole time, put them with the 2s and let them start and get some run.
Okay, just again, somebody has to sit on the bench just in case there is an injury. So there has to be some player sitting there. So that's why some guys don't go with the 2 team. And in the last 3 years, there's been a lot more complication with loaning players down because of COVID. So they that 2020, 2021 was a lot more complicated on how or when they would loan players down, bring them back into the first team, etc. That was more complicated when, again, some of those guys would have been developing or having more opportunity to develop. In the past, they would loan guys down. And honestly, sometimes they would be terrible when they went down there. I've seen Peter chew players out for having played with the 2 team and not played well, and then showing up in practice and looking good. Vermes flat out chewed out a couple of those guys for, okay, you want to play now. Why didn't you play over the weekend when you had your opportunity? Why weren't you showing then? And they didn't see much time anywhere for a little while. But again, some of those guys have showed up better when they've been loaned down. This year, they are doing it more. Cam Duke's gotten run out at left back to see if he could play there, and he's not showed bad. Of course, completely different level.
You know, the problem for Peter is that he's the sporting director and the coach. So he's got a hand in both sides of this. He's either signing players who aren't good enough, or he's not developing the guys that he thinks are good enough. So it's a lose-lose for him because he has both roles. And when you're not getting results, one of the 2 of them is at fault, either the sporting director or the coach.
Or both.
Or both.
But didn't the players show that they were good enough at the end of last season?
Good point. What changed?
That's where I keep going back and forth. It is the coach's fault if the players are not doing well, and we know that they can do better. But then I go back and forth on that discussion. Is it? I mean, sometimes there's accountability on the players. I don't know if, like, Erik Thommy was so good last year. Does it mean Peter Vermes ruined him with training in the off season, or does it mean he's just he was getting lucky last year, or he? Like we said, he's got the yips. And so I don't know. I go back and forth on that.
Remember, he looked pretty good the first couple of games until that penalty situation. And then neither one of those guys have had confidence ever since.
Well, and I keep going. So I think Cam Duke playing last night is very symbolic of the issue, which is that we are overly reliant on Graham Zusi, for instance, and overly reliant on Andreu Fontes. And we've signed these old players, and they don't have adequate backups. So we knew going into the offseason that we needed center backs, and we left it super late to try and get in Rosero these. We have Caden Pierre to back up Zusi, but we have one backup at right back. He's 19 and he popped a hammy, and now we're relying exclusively on that's the most. That's it.
David's internet today.
Not setting people up. Like, is not. I have perfect bars. I have the Google. This is not on me.
You've been messing up.
I'm sitting on top of the router. I am sitting on top of the router. But
I was earlier when I had a problem too. Maybe it's Google. Maybe they aren't developing their their Wi-Fi's well enough.
Mine's working great.
I think it's Cody. I think it's StreamYard and Cody.
Mine's working great.
But it's either the GM for not finding adequate players to allow the coach to put out an 11 that has a true right back, or it's like the coaching staff for not being able to manage minutes and do load, whatever. There's either way, it falls on Vermes. He's in charge of everything.
And there's only 2 right backs, but when the Sporting signed a third left back, everybody went, what the hell? Why are you signing a third left back? There's no one right answer except winning. That's the only right answer. So if you sign 2 right backs and you win, it's great. If you sign 3 left backs and you win, that's great. You do either case and you lose, then you obviously screwed up. There's no one single right answer to any of this. If he never played any homegrown and they were consistently winning, sorry guys, that sucks and that harms the future academy, but that's the way it is. There's no one single right answer. So no matter what we look at right now, it's going to be, it's not good enough because it hasn't been good enough.
Well, it's becoming increasingly clear that the current answers are not the right answers.
Apple Gift Card is a practical gift that unlocks a world of entertainment and fun. You can send it via email or give a physical card to your loved ones. Your friends and family can spend it on their favorite Apple services, including Apple subscriptions. Apple Gift Card can be used to buy all things Apple. Products, accessories, apps, games, movies, TV shows, iCloud Plus, and more. Visit apple.com for details and to send Apple Gift Cards to your friends and family this holiday season.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need, have coverage options to protect the things you value most, file a claim right on the State Farm mobile app, and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
What exactly would you do if Vermes was out starting tomorrow? Let's just say on Wednesday, because let's get past the Tulsa game first. But what would you do if you were the coach? What would you change with the players you have today? Because if you make a change, you got to make you're going to get that new coach bump, but it may not last long if you don't adequately use your same players. And you have the same players that he has right now. What would you do?
Robert.
Oh, thanks for that. Of course, that's an incredibly difficult question because you don't have the knowledge of what you need to make those decisions from where we're sitting. Okay, but first thing for me would be I would have to tweak, how we play the game, and
astute analysis there.
We have to tweak how we play the game.
We have
Robert.
to play
You
soccer
can do better
better.
than that. I mean, you have a good soccer mind. You can do better than that.
What I mean is, like I said, we have to tweak the system, which is the 4-3-3, and do something different because it's not working. It's not being executed. And I would need more information to make that decision. A good coach would not make that decision and make adjustments without the information you need.
So let's.
I got answers, and I'm not. So I must not be a good coach because I have plenty of ideas.
You're just.
I got ideas, but I need to, verify some things before I make those decisions.
See, David knows how.
U5 coach, David.
David knows how to make content here. David, be the gas bag man. You
Come
have
on,
your
go.
opinions. Spout them.
Okay. So the first thing Fontes has to go. Fontes has to be done. If you put me in charge of the team on Wednesday,
You're the
Fontes
coach,
is training,
not the GM.
That's the first.
Fontes is training with the academy. Oh, I don't have to sell him. He's just going to play with the academy from now on. He's going to be in a small-sided game with the U17s. It's got to be Ndembe, Volater, Rosero, and the corpse of Graham Zusi until Caden Pierre is healthy enough to play. Once Caden Pierre is fit, Caden Pierre is your guy, because that way you at least have a little bit of pace along the back line. And Ndembe can run, Pierre can run, Rosero can run. They can all make recovery runs because our defense is getting stretched. Fontes was signed because he's great at those, like, really direct, incisive passes. We're not capable of playing that way right now. We just don't. It's just not working. So play more small passes to the feet of people. I'd switch from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1, which would, and I would put, well, if Gotti comes back, Gotti plays at the 10, and you've got Walter and probably Thommy or Felipe there to kind of shuttle the ball. So the back line can play it directly to the 2, or Radoya if he ever if Radoya ever makes his way out of the funeral home. That way you can play directly to their feet, and they're able to shuttle the ball forward. So instead of trying to hit big switches, instead of trying to hit long through balls, you just play more directly to the feet to be able to shuttle from the back line to the attack. You've got, by dropping your 2 wingers from the 4-3-3 down to a 4-2-3-1, they're playing almost more like wide mids, which gives you more defensive support. But this way, you can also, as you shuttle the ball, you can push the line of attack and the line of confrontation forward more. The rest of it then on the attack is just a matter of teaching patterns of play. I mean, it's easier said than done, because if it was that easy, everybody would do what Man City does. But it's so very clear from watching us play that we don't play through the middle, and we love hitting crosses. And I was watching last night. Duke got the ball in the wing in the first half and hit a cross when there was literally nobody in the box. There's nobody to hit the ball to, but instead of stopping, instead of looking, instead of holding up play, trying to play back to the feet of somebody else, he just keeps his head down, whips a ball in. Ben Sweat does that. Tim Leibold, everybody. This is how they're trained to play. No, we're not going to do that anymore. So everything's going to have to funnel through the middle. And if teams want to muck up the middle of the park, then, until we get to the transfer window, this is just going to have to be what it is. And then transfer window, try to unload any deadwood that you can. Probably unlikely until the winter window when you can cut some people. But look for a true 10. Like a true number 10. And if they don't play defense, I don't care. Give me an Argentine who can make a pass, who can unlock a defense.
Now, as far as your back line ideas, I think that's the plan. It just hasn't worked out with injuries and everything. I don't think that's anything different than what Vermes wants to do.
Then
as far
why
as the
sign
formation,
Fontes?
I've been on the 4-2-3-1 train for a long time, if you look back past at my articles. But yeah, I agree with a lot of that you said, and that's some things that I would look at doing as well. But I think part of it is the current plan. It just, with the injuries, hasn't worked out that way. And that's why Peter keeps saying, when we get these players back, which is a lame excuse and, tired.
I just don't believe that Graham Zusi will ever not play. I just don't believe. I think anytime Peter Vermes says, like, the plan is to get Pierre on the field, I think he's lying. Straight up.
Except for the most recent match, of course. No.
Okay. I like 4-2-3-1 also. And I think in the situation when the team is struggling, it's a good formation to go to. I would, if I was coaching this team, I like the 4-3-3. I like the 4-2-3-1. I would actually, there's the variations of the 4-3-3 that you can call the 4-2-3-1, where you basically have the double pivot back there. It's essentially the same thing with slightly different roles. So I like that. When the team is struggling defensively, I would go to that 4-2-3-1 version, or the double pivot of a 4-3-3, because it protects your back line better. When you're on the road, that needs to probably happen more. When you're in the attack, it can be much more of a 4-3-3 or some other unbalanced version. When one outside back gets forward and helps unbalance that, the other one needs to stay back more. When Sporting was their most successful, one outside back would get forward a lot and one would stay back and help that defensively. Now they seem to get both of them forward to try to help the attack, and it hurts them defensively. Of course, it used to be Seth would always be the one stay back because he was less offensive minded. Peter does change tactics more than a lot of people ever give him credit for, but it's micro tactics, not macro tactics. I don't know if that's a good phrase, but it's the little stuff. It's not the bigger stuff. Sometimes it needs to do, I think, a little bit bigger stuff to change that. He does it every once in a while, but not often enough, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm sorry to everyone listening after Tuesday, because they will know if we have won or lost. They're living in a future. But yeah, maybe we will have to, depending on the result, we may have to talk about the game and the state of our club after later here in the week.
Is the game even being broadcast?
No, there's a late decision. I thought I just saw yesterday or 2 days ago that there is going to be some stream. Maybe I'm dreaming that. But yeah, originally we were told there was no stream.
But I was told also that to hold on and it might come out. So maybe it has, and I just missed that.
Yeah,
I'll be there. Cody will be there.
Me too.
I'll be there.
Cody, you'll be working for the enemy.
Yeah, I'll be doing social media for the opposing league.
For Tulsa Athletic?
Well,
For the
I
league.
think it's the league as opposed to the team. Yeah, crossing enemy lines. Be on the
They
winning,
pay.
Be on the winning side for once.
You win no matter what, Cody.
All right, gentlemen. Longer pod today. It was rough. The first attempt at the video here on StreamYard was pretty rough, especially with your guys' bad internet. But I think we're going to figure this out. We're working out the kinks. We like to take the audience along with us. So, yeah. Any final thoughts, Thad? Do you want to say something prophetic?
Lugubrious.
Spartak!
Don't seem so tough. And 3 own goals ain't all that rough. Our skipper has just been sent off. Supporters strong have all gone soft. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin. Anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking.